Susan Miller floated in the dim emergency lighting of the alien ship's command center. The red glow cast strange shadows across her face as she checked the oxygen levels again. They were dropping faster than she had calculated. Behind her, the soft hiss of the air recyclers had grown louder, a bad sign that the filters were clogging. 3 weeks had passed since the captain of the Zelnaga had left with half the crew, promising to return with help. 3 weeks of waiting. 3 weeks of watching systems fail one by one. "How much time do we have?" asked Vexilor, the alien chief science officer who had become Susan's closest ally in this nightmare. Susan pushed away from the console, drifting slowly in the low gravity they maintained to conserve power. 2 days, maybe 3 if we power. Down the lower decks completely. Vexilor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep distress among the Trizine. His purple skin had paled during their ordeal, now closer to lavender than its normal rich violet. The thin membrane between, his long fingers trembled slightly. "They are not coming back, are they?" he asked, his translator making his voice sound flat and emotionless, though Susan had learned to read the subtle shifts in his posture that told a different story. "I don't think so," Susan admitted. There was no point lying anymore. Something must have happened to them, or they would have returned by now. Around them, the remaining 12 crew members worked quietly at their stations. Some were monitoring the failing systems. Others were preparing more stasis pods for the rotation Susan had established. Nobody mentioned the abandoned research specimens in the lower labs. Those had been the first to be sacrificed when the power started failing. Susan had been the only human invited aboard the Zelnaga as part of a diplomatic exchange program. She was supposed to study Trizine biology for 6 months, then return home with valuable data to help strengthen the alliance between their species. Instead, she found herself trapped in deep space, fighting to keep alien beings alive while trying to understand their technology. "We must consider activating the emergency beacon," Vexilor said softly, so the others wouldn't hear. Susan knew what that meant. The emergency beacon would drain what remained of their power reserves, leaving them with hours instead of days. If help didn't come immediately, they would all die faster. But if they didn't try, they would certainly die anyway. "Let's give it one more day," she suggested. "The nebula is interfering with communications. Maybe we'll drift out of it soon." Vexilor nodded, a human gesture he had adopted from her. "One day," he agreed. Susan pushed off gently, floating toward the observation deck. She needed a moment alone. The stars looked different here, far from Earth. The nebula cast everything in shades of blue and green, beautiful but alien. She pressed her hand against the cold viewport and wondered if she would ever see home again. "You're not meditating again, are you?" The voice belonged to Krell, the ship's engineer. His Trizine accent made the English words sound musical. "Last time you did that, you came up with the stasis rotation idea that's kept us alive this long." Susan smiled. "Just thinking. A dangerous activity." Krell joined her at the viewport. Unlike Vexilor, he had adapted well to the crisis, his dark blue skin still glossy and healthy. "The others are afraid." "I know. They are not afraid of dying," Krell clarified. "They are afraid of being forgotten. In our culture, to be abandoned is worse than death. It means you were not worthy of memory." Susan turned to look at him. "You weren't abandoned. Your captain left to get help, and has not returned." Krell's upper eyes closed while his lower ones remained open, a gesture Susan had come to recognize as resignation. The High Council likely ordered them not to return. Why would they do that? Krell was quiet for a moment. "Vexilor's research. It is problematic for certain political factions. They believe his work on interspecies neural communication threatens Trizine cultural purity." Susan felt cold despite the environmental controls keeping the ship at optimal temperature for both human and Trizine physiology. "You're saying we were abandoned on purpose, as some kind of political move?" "I am saying it is possible." Krell touched a control panel, and the viewport darkened slightly, bringing the distant stars into sharper focus. "But that does not mean we are without hope." A soft alarm sounded from the command center. Susan pushed off immediately, propelling herself through the ship with practiced ease. In the 3 weeks aboard, she had learned to navigate in low gravity as well as any of the crew. "Life support is failing on Deck 4, reported Mira, the young Trizine medical officer. Her hands moved quickly over the controls, her long fingers, a blur of motion. "We need to evacuate the crew in stasis there." "There's no room in the other stasis chambers," Susan said, checking the ship's layout on her tablet. "We'll have to bring them here and put them on oxygen masks. Their supplies of breathable air were limited. This would cut their survival time even further." "Wait." Vexler floated over to them, excitement evident in his rapid blinking. "The long-range sensors are picking up something." Susan felt her heart rate increase. "The captain returning?" "No." Vexler adjusted the sensors. "Different energy signature. Not Trizine." The main screen flickered to life, showing a distant point of light moving steadily toward them. The computer analyzed its approach vector and speed. "It's a ship," Susan said, hardly daring to hope. "But whose?" The ship's AI, its voice now glitchy from power fluctuations, announced, "Unknown vessel approaching. Configuration matches. Human military designation." A wave of murmurs rippled through the command center. Susan grabbed the console to steady herself, not trusting her voice to remain calm. "Can we hail them?" she asked finally. Krell moved to the communication station. "We have enough power for one transmission. After that, we'll lose life support in all but this deck." Susan nodded. "Do it." As Krell prepared the transmission, Susan stared at the approaching ship on the screen. It was still too far away to see clearly, but its trajectory was deliberate. They had been spotted. "This is our only chance," Vexler said quietly beside her. "If they pass us by." "They won't," Susan said with more confidence than she felt. "Humans are curious by nature. They'll investigate." The entire crew gathered around the view screen now, watching the approaching vessel. Hope was a dangerous thing in their situation, Susan knew. But for the first time in weeks, it felt like they might survive. "Message ready," Krell announced. "What should it say?" Susan thought for a moment, then spoke clearly. "This is Susan Miller, xenobiologist of Earth aboard the Trizine research vessel Zelnaga. We are stranded with failing life support. 13 crew members still alive. Please help." Krell translated it into the standard emergency format and sent the message. Immediately, the lights dimmed further as power was diverted from non-essential systems. Now all they could do was wait and watch as the human ship grew larger on their screen, a distant promise of rescue in the vast emptiness of space. Jack Rodriguez adjusted his headset as another burst of static came through the communications system. He had been monitoring the unusual signal for the past hour, trying to filter out the nebula's interference. Something about the pattern bothered him. It wasn't random noise, it had structure, meaning. "Sir," he called out, not taking his eyes off his screen. "I think you should hear this." Lieutenant Commander Patricia Grant crossed the bridge of the UNSC Valiant in 4 quick strides. The warship was on routine patrol along the border regions, a show of human military presence in this part of space. Nothing exciting ever happened on these missions. "What have you got, Rodriguez?" Jack played back the cleaned-up signal. It came from inside the Horsehead Nebula. Listen to the pattern. The bridge fell silent as the transmission played. A woman's voice, breaking up but still understandable. "This is Susan Miller, xenobiologist of Earth, aboard the Trizine research vessel Zelnaga. We are stranded with failing life support. 13 crew members still alive. Please help." Patricia's eyes widened. "That's a human voice." "Yes, ma'am." "And the distress format matches Trizine protocols established during first contact." Captain Nathan Carter joined them, his weathered face serious under the blue lights of the bridge. "Play it again." After listening a second time, he turned to the ship's navigator. "How far are we from the source?" "About 6 hours at maximum speed, sir, but entering the nebula will slow us down. The radiation interferes with our navigation systems." Captain Carter stood silent for a moment, looking at the star map displaying their patrol route. Orders were clear. Maintain course. Show the flag, return to base. No deviations. Sir, Patricia said quietly. If that's really a human on a trizene vessel in distress, the captain nodded once. Plot a course to the signal source. Alert medical to prepare for possible casualties, both human and trizene. Captain, his executive officer spoke up from across the bridge. Command won't like this, we're abandoning our patrol route. Note my decision in the log, Commander. I'll deal with command later. Carter's voice left no room for further discussion. Rodriguez, try to establish communication with the vessel. Jack immediately began sending response signals, but the nebula's interference was too strong. No response, sir. They might not be able to hear us. Keep trying. The captain turned to Patricia. Grant, I want everything we have on trizene vessels, especially their life support systems. If they've been stranded for weeks, they'll need immediate assistance. As the Valiant changed course, accelerating toward the nebula, the crew moved with renewed purpose. Border patrols were boring. Rescue missions were not. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Olivia Kelly reviewed what little information they had on trizene physiology. As the ship's chief medical officer, she had basic training in alien biology, but actual hands-on experience was rare. The alliance with the trizene was still new, barely 15 years old, and information sharing had been limited. Doctor? A young medic handed her a datapad. I found these files in the database. They're from the First Contact Medical Exchange. Olivia scrolled through the information. This helps, but it's still not much. Their blood chemistry is completely different from ours. They need more nitrogen in their breathing mix than we do. She sighed. I hope their medical officer is still alive. We may need their expertise as much as they need ours. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the outer edges of the nebula. Beautiful swirls of blue and green gas pressed against the viewports, obscuring the stars beyond. In the center of this cloud lay a stranded ship and 13 lives hanging in the balance. Security Chief Daniel Brown checked his weapon out of habit as he assembled his boarding team. 6 security officers and Dr. Kelly prepared in the shuttle bay, ready to transfer to the alien vessel once they reached it. Remember, Daniel told his team, we don't know what condition they're in. The priority is medical evaluation and stabilization before transfer. The captain wants this done by the book. What about the research? Asked one of his officers. Trizene. Ships usually carry sensitive technology. Not our concern, Daniel replied firmly. We're here for the survivors, nothing else. On the bridge, Captain Carter watched the view screen as the nebula grew thicker around them. Visibility was down to less than 100 meters, and the ship's sensors were struggling to compensate. Reduce speed, he ordered. Switch to manual navigation. Patricia took the helm controls, her fingers dancing across the panel with practiced ease. Manual navigation engaged, sir. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the massive warship inched forward through the colored gas clouds. A wrong turn could send them crashing into hidden asteroids or straight into radiation pockets that would fry their systems. Signal source is stronger, Jack reported. Bearing 047, range approximately 10,000 kilometers. Adjust course, the captain ordered. The minutes stretched into hours as they carefully navigated through the nebula. Twice they had to stop completely as radiation levels spiked, threatening their electronics. The hull creaked and groaned as cosmic dust particles impacted the shields. Finally, Jack's console lit up. Sir, we have visual contact, the main screen flickered, showing a ghostly shape floating in the colorful mists of the nebula. The trizene vessel was smaller than the Valiant, its elegant curved design contrasting with the angular human warship. Its running lights were dark, and it rotated slowly, clearly without power for stabilization. Life signs? The captain asked. Faint. Readings, sir. The nebula is interfering with our scans, but there's definitely someone alive in there. Captain Carter studied the image. Any signs of damage? Was it attacked? Patricia adjusted the sensors. No obvious weapons damage, sir. Looks like system failure. Sir, Jack called out. I'm picking up a transmission from the vessel. Audio only. A woman's voice, weak but determined. came through the speakers. Unknown human vessel. This is Susan Miller. Please respond. We have multiple critical systems failing. Our life support is almost gone. The captain pressed the communication button on his chair. This is Captain Nathan Carter of the UNSC Valiant. We hear you, Susan Miller. Hold on. We're coming to get you. There was a long pause before the reply came. Thank you. Please hurry. Captain Carter stood up. Deploy the boarding team. Dr. Kelly, Chief Brown, you're authorized for immediate rescue. Operations Commander Grant, prepare to receive survivors. Let's bring these people home. As the shuttle bay doors opened and the rescue team prepared to launch, Daniel checked his equipment one final time. This was what the UNSC was really about, not just showing military strength but extending humanity's hand to those in need, even across the stars. Rescue team ready for launch, he reported. In the silence that followed, the fate of 13 lives hung in the balance. 12 aliens and 1 human woman, abandoned in the depths of space until a human warship arrived. The shuttle detached from the Valiant with a soft metallic clank. Daniel Brown sat in the lead seat, watching through the front viewport as they approached the Trizene vessel. Up close, the alien ship looked worse than it had on the Valiant's screens. Its hull was covered in a thin layer of cosmic dust, and several external panels had come loose, floating nearby like abandoned pieces of a puzzle. Approaching docking port, the pilot announced. Looks like their airlock systems are offline. We'll need to use the emergency boarding procedure. Daniel nodded. Dr. Kelly, your team ready? Olivia checked her medical kit one last time. As ready as we can be. Remember, everyone keeps their breathing masks on until we confirm the air composition is safe. The shuttle aligned with an emergency access port near the middle of the Trizene ship. With careful precision, the pilot extended the boarding tube, creating a sealed passage between the two vessels. The magnetic clamps engaged with a dull thud. Sealed and stable, the pilot confirmed. Good luck in there. Daniel led the way, pushing through the boarding tube with his weapon lowered but ready. Standard procedure for unknown situations, even on rescue missions. Behind him came 2 security officers, then Dr. Kelly with her medical team, and finally the rest of the security detail bringing up the rear. The emergency access port opened with surprising ease. Inside, the alien ship was dimly lit by red emergency, lights that cast long shadows across the curved corridors. The air was noticeably thinner, and Daniel's breathing mask hissed softly as it compensated. Life signs? He asked over the comlink. Reading multiple signatures in what appears to be the command center, one of his officers replied, checking a handheld scanner. That way. He pointed down the main corridor. They moved carefully through the ship, noting the alien design elements. Trizene architecture favored curves over straight lines, and the corridors wound in gentle spirals rather than the grid-like layout of human vessels. The walls were covered in patterns that probably meant something to the aliens, but were just decorative to human eyes. As they approached the command center, Daniel heard voices. One was clearly human, a woman speaking English. The others had the distinctive musical quality of translated Trizene speech. Hello? Daniel called out. This is Security Chief Daniel Brown from the UNSC Valiant. We're here to help. A moment of silence followed, then the human voice responded with obvious relief. In here. We're in the command center. The door to the command center was partially open, stuck in position due to power failure. Daniel and his team pushed it just enough to slip through. Inside, they found a scene of organized desperation. The command center was circular, with control stations arranged around a central holographic display that was currently dark. Floating near the main console was a woman in a science uniform, Susan Miller, Daniel assumed. Around her were several Trizene crew members, their purple and blue skin looking pale and unhealthy in the emergency lighting. Thank God, Susan said, pushing herself toward them. Our life support is almost gone. We have 12 crew members still alive, 8 in stasis, and 4 of us awake. Dr. Kelly moved forward immediately. I'm Dr. Olivia Kelly. Where are the ones in stasis? A tall Trizene with 4 blinking eyes floated toward them. I am Vexilor, Chief Science Officer. The stasis chambers are in the next room. But there is a problem, They were not designed for long-term use. Their settings may be causing damage to our organic systems. Olivia nodded and signaled to her medical team. Show us. We need to assess their condition before moving anyone. As the medical team followed Vexilor to the stasis room, Daniel approached Susan. Are you injured? She shook her head. Just exhausted and hungry. We've been rationing food for weeks. She looked at the security team with curiosity. I didn't expect a warship to find us. We're way off any normal patrol routes. Your distress signal was picked up by our communications officer, Daniel explained. Captain Carter made the decision to investigate despite our orders to maintain our patrol route. A darker blue trizene approached them. Then we owe your captain a great debt. I am Krell, ship's engineer. Our own people abandoned us. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? Susan glanced at Krell before answering. It's complicated. The captain and half the crew left 3 weeks ago, supposedly to get help. They never returned. She lowered her voice. Krell believes it was deliberate, that they were ordered not to come back. Before Daniel could ask more questions, Dr. Kelly returned, her face serious behind her breathing mask. We need to move quickly. The trizene and stasis are in critical condition. Their pods were programmed for trizene physiology, but the long-term use is causing metabolic problems. Can they be transported? Daniel asked. We don't have a choice. If we leave them here, they'll die. We need to get them to the Valiant's medical bay immediately. Daniel activated his comlink. Captain, this is Brown. We have 13 survivors. 1 human, 12 trizene. 8 of the aliens are in critical condition in stasis pods. Request immediate medical evacuation and prepare the bay for emergency treatment. Captain Carter's voice came through clearly. Understood. We're sending a second shuttle with additional medical staff. What about the ship? Daniel looked at Krell. Can this vessel be salvaged? The engineer's upper eyes closed, a gesture Daniel didn't understand. The main systems are failing beyond repair. The nebula's radiation has damaged our core processors. Without them, nothing works. There's something else, Susan added. Research materials in the science lab. Vexilor's work, it's important. If we're abandoning ship, we need to take that too. Daniel relayed this to the captain, who agreed to retrieve essential research materials. The next hour passed in organized chaos as the medical team carefully moved the trizene in stasis to the shuttle. Dr. Kelly worked frantically, adjusting settings and administering emergency treatments to stabilize them for transport. Susan and Vexilor hurried to the science lab to gather the most critical research data and samples. Daniel assigned 2 security officers to help them. What exactly is this research? Daniel asked as they floated through winding corridors toward the lab. Interspecies neural communication, Susan explained. Vexilor has developed a way to bridge the gap between different nervous systems, potentially allowing direct communication between species without translators or misunderstandings. That sounds revolutionary. Vexilor's membrane fingers trembled slightly as he worked a control panel. It is why we were abandoned. Certain factions within the Trizene High Council believe such technology threatens our cultural purity. They fear direct neural links with other species would dilute our unique perspective. The lab door slid open, revealing a room filled with delicate equipment. Much of it was dark, powered down to conserve energy, but some small lights still blinked. On central units. We need these data cores and these sample containers, Vexilor said, pointing to various items. They contain years of research, work that could change how our species interact forever. As they gathered the materials, a low rumble shook the ship. Loose panels rattled, and a warning light began flashing near the door. What was that? Daniel asked, reaching for his weapon instinctively. Susan checked a nearby console. The structural integrity is failing faster than we predicted. The power fluctuations must have accelerated the damage. Another rumble, stronger this time, sent them floating in different directions. A piece of equipment broke free from its mounting and narrowly missed Susan's head. We need to go. Now, Daniel ordered, helping Susan gather the last of the sample containers. As they made their way back to the shuttle, the ship groaned around them, the sound of metal stress echoing through the corridors. The Zelnaga, abandoned by its own people, was dying, but its crew and their groundbreaking research would live on, rescued by humans who had come from the stars. The last shuttle docked with the Valiant as another shutter ran through the abandoned alien vessel. From the viewport, Captain Carter watched as a section of the Zelnaga's outer hull tore away, drifting into the colorful gases of the nebula. "Everyone accounted for?" he asked as Daniel Brown entered the bridge. "Yes, sir. All survivors and the priority research materials are aboard. The Trizene vessel won't last much longer." Captain Carter nodded. "Good work, Chief. Status of the survivors?" "Dr. Kelly has them in medical bay. The ones from stasis are in critical condition. She's working with the Trizene medical officer to stabilize them." In the medical bay, Olivia Kelly worked frantically alongside Mira, the young Trizene doctor. The 8 aliens from the stasis pods lay on medical beds, surrounded by equipment that beeped and flashed with unfamiliar readings. "Their metabolic rates are all wrong," Olivia said, studying a screen showing alien vital signs she barely understood. The stasis settings were degrading their cellular structures. Mira's fingers moved quickly over a medical tablet. The pods were not meant for such extended use. They were emergency units only. Her translated voice sounded strained. "We need to correct the ionic balance in their systems." Susan Miller floated nearby, having refused to rest until she knew her crewmates would survive. "Can you help them?" Olivia injected a carefully measured solution into one of the patients. "We're trying. Thankfully, your Dr. Mira knows what they need. We just have to provide it." On the other side of the medical bay, Vexilor sat with Krell and the other conscious Trizene crew members. They spoke quietly among themselves, occasionally glancing at the humans moving around the ship. Captain Carter entered the medical bay, his tall figure commanding attention, even in the crowded space. "Dr. Kelly, what's our situation?" "Critical. But stabilizing," Olivia replied without looking up from her patient. 4 of the 8 from stasis are responding well to treatment. The other 4... She hesitated. "We're doing everything we can." The captain turned to Susan, who pushed herself away from the wall to meet him. "Ms. Miller, I'm Captain Nathan Carter. Welcome aboard the Valiant." "Thank you for saving us, Captain." Susan's voice was steady despite her exhaustion. "Another day and we would have been out of air. I need to understand what happened. Why was your ship abandoned in the nebula?" Susan glanced at Vexler, who nodded slightly. "It's complicated, sir. The short version is that our ship suffered system failures and the captain left with half the crew to get help. They never returned." "And the long version?" "Politics," Susan said simply. "Vexler's research is controversial among his people. Some powerful groups don't want it to succeed." The captain's expression remained neutral. "I see. And this research, it's what you insisted on bringing aboard?" "Yes, sir. It's a breakthrough in interspecies communication. It could change everything about how humans and Trizene interact." Before the captain could respond, the ship rocked violently. Warning lights flashed, and the artificial gravity fluctuated for a moment. "Bridge, report!" Carter barked into his communicator. Patricia Grant's voice came through. "Sir, the nebula's radiation levels are spiking. It's affecting our systems, and we're picking up 3 ships on long-range sensors, approaching fast." "Identification?" "Trizene military vessels, sir." The medical bay fell silent. The conscious Trizene looked at each other, their 4 eyes blinking in patterns that Susan had learned to recognize as alarm. "They're not here to rescue us," Vexilor said quietly. "They're here to make sure we don't leave." Captain Carter's face hardened. "Ms. Miller, Mr. Vexilor, I need full details now. What exactly are we dealing with?" Susan helped Vexilor to his feet, and they followed the captain to a small conference room adjacent to the medical bay. Krell joined them, along with Daniel Brown and Patricia Grant, who arrived from the bridge. "My research," Vexilor began, his translator making his voice sound flat despite the emotion evident in his body language, "is on direct neural communication between species. I have developed a technology that allows one being to directly experience the thoughts and feelings of another, regardless of biological differences." That sounds valuable, Patricia said. Why would anyone oppose it? Krell's upper eyes closed in the gesture Susan had explained meant resignation. Our society values the purity of trizene thought. Some believe that direct neural contact with other species would contaminate our cultural identity. The conservative faction of the High Council has been blocking this research for years, Susan added. When our ship had system failures, they saw an opportunity to let it disappear quietly, along with everyone involved. Captain Carter leaned forward. And these approaching ships? Military vessels loyal to the conservative faction, Vexler said. They will claim they are here to rescue us, but their real mission will be to destroy all evidence of my research, including us if necessary. Daniel Brown checked his tactical display. 3 warships against 1. Not good odds, sir. The captain stood up. I need options. We have injured people who need medical attention. We can't outrun 3 trizene warships with our current fuel levels, especially in this nebula. Patricia studied the ship's status on her tablet. The nebula is interfering with their sensors just like it did with ours. That gives us some cover. And the radiation spikes might hide our energy signature if we power down non-essential systems. Hide and hope they miss us? Daniel didn't sound convinced. No, Vexler said suddenly. There is another option. All 4 of his eyes focused on Susan. The prototype. It's among the equipment we brought aboard. Susan's eyes widened. Vexler, it's not tested for human trizene neural connection. The risks are great, he finished. But so is our need. What prototype? Captain Carter asked. Vexler's thin fingers trembled slightly. A working model of my neural communication device. With it, I could establish direct contact with the commanders of those vessels. Make them experience what we experienced. The abandonment, the fear, the slow death of our ship. In our culture, Krell explained, to be abandoned is the ultimate shame. To experience it firsthand would be devastating. They could not continue their mission after such an experience. Captain Carter looked skeptical. You're suggesting psychological warfare. I'm suggesting truth, Vexler corrected. They ordered our abandonment without experiencing its consequences. My device would simply show them the reality of their decision. The ship rocked again as another radiation wave hit them. The lights flickered. Sir, Patricia reported, checking the latest sensor data. The trizene vessels have entered the nebula. Estimated time to intercept, 40 minutes. The captain looked at each person in the room, weighing his options. 13 lives had been saved only to be placed in danger again. His ship was low on fuel, trapped in a radiation-filled nebula, and facing 3 enemy vessels. Ms. Miller, he said finally, you've worked with Vexler. What's your assessment of this plan? Susan took a deep breath. The technology works, Captain. I've seen it connect 2 trizene minds, but a cross-species connection has never been attempted. It could fail, or it could be exactly what we need. Captain Carter nodded once. Get the prototype ready. If we can't run and we can't fight, we'll try something they won't expect. He turned to Patricia. Commander Grant, set course for the densest part of the nebula. Let's make ourselves difficult to find while they prepare this device. As they left the conference room, the Valiant's engines hummed to life, pushing the ship deeper into the swirling colored gases of the nebula. Behind them, the broken hull of the Xel'Naga finally came apart, scattering in the cosmic winds like seeds from a dying plant, its legacy now continuing in the research saved by the human warship that had arrived just in time. The science lab aboard the Valiant had been quickly converted into a makeshift research area. Susan and Vexler worked side by side, carefully assembling the neural communication device from the components they had rescued from the Xel'Naga. The prototype resembled a silver helmet with delicate filaments extending from its surface like a spider's web. Will it work on humans? Susan asked as she connected a series of thin wires to the main unit. Vexler's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. In theory, yes. Our nervous systems are different, but the basic principles of neural electricity are universal. The device translates neural patterns into a common format that any brain can understand. Krell floated nearby, monitoring the approaching trizene vessels on a small screen. They're searching a grid pattern, methodical, They know we're here somewhere. How much time do we have? Susan asked. 20 minutes, perhaps less. They've split up to cover more area. The ship shuddered as it moved through a particularly dense region of the nebula. The colorful gases outside the viewport swirled in hypnotic patterns, occasionally flashing with energy discharges. Almost ready, Vexilor said, making a final adjustment to the device. We need to test it first. Susan looked up. Between you and me? Yes. A human trizene connection has never been attempted. We must ensure it works before trying to reach the commanders of those vessels. Captain Carter entered the lab with Daniel Brown. Status report? We're ready for a test, sir, Susan replied. Vexilor and I will establish a connection to make sure it works across species. The captain frowned. Is that safe? No, Vexilor said simply. But neither is facing 3 warships with depleted fuel reserves. Susan sat in a chair opposite Vexilor. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the neural device. It was lighter than it looked, almost weightless in her hands. What should I expect? She asked. First, a sense of disorientation, Vexilor explained. Then you will begin to perceive my thoughts, memories, and emotions. I will experience yours similarly. It is intimate. There can be no secrets between minds in direct neural contact. Susan took a deep breath and placed the device on her head. Vexilor did the same with a similar unit designed for trizene physiology. Their eyes met across the small space between them. Ready? She asked. Ready. Krell activated the system. The devices hummed softly, and tiny lights blinked along their surfaces. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Susan gasped, her eyes widening. Colors she had never seen before flooded her mind. Emotions she had no words for washed over her. She was suddenly aware of 4 separate visual fields merging into one comprehensive view of the world. She could feel the membrane between her fingers she didn't have. She could sense the gentle electrical fields generated by nearby equipment in ways human senses never could. She was Vexilor, and he was her. Through their shared consciousness, she understood in seconds what would have taken years to explain with words. The true meaning of abandonment in trizene culture. The political factions fighting over the future of interspecies relations. Vexilor's hopes that his research would bridge the gap between their kinds forever. And he understood her. Her loneliness as the only human on an alien ship. Her determination to keep everyone alive. Her wonder at the universe and its endless diversity. When Krell finally disconnected the system, tears streamed down Susan's face. Vexilor's membrane fingers trembled with emotion. It works, she whispered. Captain Carter looked between them. Can you reach the trizene commanders from here? Vexilor adjusted something on his device. The range is limited. We would need to get closer, within visual range of at least one of their vessels. Patricia's voice came through the ship's communication system. Captain, one of the trizene ships is less than 5 minutes from our position. They're following our ion trail. They've found us, Daniel said. The captain made his decision. We'll allow the closest ship to find us. When they approach, we'll deploy the neural device. He turned to Vexilor. What do you need to make this work? Direct visual contact and time, about 30 seconds of uninterrupted connection. That's a long time in a combat situation, Daniel pointed out. It's our only option, the captain replied. Chief Brown, prepare a security team to defend the science lab if they board us. Commander Grant, bring us about. Let's face them head on. The Valiant's engines hummed as the ship turned in the nebula, heading directly toward the approaching trizene vessel. On the bridge, Patricia guided the ship with careful precision, navigating through gas pockets and radiation waves. Visual contact in 3 minutes, she reported. In the science lab, Vexilor made final adjustments to the neural device. I've boosted the signal strength. It should reach their bridge crew if we get close enough. Susan helped him secure the, components. What exactly will they experience? Everything. Our abandonment. The failing life support. The knowledge that our own people left us to die. Vexilor's eyes blinked rapidly. In our culture, such an experience will be devastating. The ship's alert system sounded. On the main screen, a Trizene military vessel appeared through the colorful gases. It was larger than the Valiant, with sleek lines and powerful weapons, systems clearly visible on its hull. "They're charging weapons," Patricia reported. "Hold position," Captain Carter ordered. "Open a channel." The communications officer worked his console. "Channel open, sir." "Trizene vessel. This is Captain Nathan Carter of the UNSC Valiant. We have rescued survivors from the research ship Zel Naga. We request assistance with injured personnel." There was a pause before a response came. The translated voice was cold and formal. "Human vessel, the survivors and all research materials must be transferred to our ship immediately. This is a Trizene internal matter." The captain glanced at Vexler, who nodded. The neural device was ready. "We request face-to-face communication to coordinate the transfer," Captain Carter replied. Another pause. "Granted. Activating visual communication." The main screen changed, showing the bridge of the Trizene vessel. Their commander sat in a central position, surrounded by officers. All had the distinctive purple skin and 4 eyes of their species. Vexlor activated the neural device. What happened next was unlike anything the human crew had ever witnessed. The Trizene commander suddenly stiffened, all 4 eyes widening in shock. The other officers on their bridge reacted similarly, some crying out in their musical language. Through the neural link, Vexlor was sharing everything. The abandonment, the slow death of their ship, the desperate fight for survival. Every emotion, every fear, every moment of despair flooded into the minds of those who had ordered their deaths. In Trizene culture, to experience abandonment was worse than death. To be responsible for it was an unforgivable shame. The connection lasted 30 seconds. When it ended, the Trizene commander slumped in his chair, membrane fingers trembling uncontrollably. "You understand now?" Vexler said simply through the communication link. The commander looked up, all 4 eyes blinking in the pattern that Susan had learned meant deep distress. "We understand." His voice, even through the translator, sounded broken. "The orders came from above. We did not know." "Tell the other ships to stand down," Captain Carter ordered. The Trizene commander did so without hesitation. Within minutes, the other 2 vessels had joined them, their weapons systems powered down. In the medical bay, Dr. Kelly looked up as Susan entered. "The last critical patient is stable. They're all going to make it." Susan smiled tiredly. "All of this, just to silence a research project." "A research project that worked," Olivia pointed out. "You changed their minds with a direct neural connection. That's revolutionary." Later, as the Valiant prepared to leave the nebula, escorted by the Trizene vessels now serving as protection rather than threats, Susan found Vexlor on the observation deck, staring out at the colorful gases that had nearly become their grave. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we bring the truth to both our peoples," Vexlor replied. "The neural connection cannot be denied or hidden anymore. It will change everything." Susan nodded, looking out at the stars beginning to appear as they reached the edge of the nebula. The abandoned research vessel was gone, but its most important discovery had survived, brought to safety by a human warship that arrived just in time. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "you have to be abandoned to discover who will truly come for you." Vexlor's 4 eyes blinked in a pattern she now recognized as agreement. Together they watched as the ships emerged from the nebula into clear space, leaving behind the place where they had nearly died and taking with them the technology that would forever change how their species understood each other.